Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, happy hump day. Glad you're here with us. Larry Smith this week. Getting ready for another hour of power here on the Sports IQ. We've got a couple of great conversations with college football. And think of it this way. You know, a year ago, had we told you we'd be talking to Mike Groves talking Penn State and Shannon Griffith talking Indiana, you'd say, oh, okay, yeah, Penn State, James Franklin coming off the playoff appearance, and Indiana coming off as also a playoff appearance, and Curt Cignetti. Yeah, could he do it again in year two? My, what a difference a year makes. One of those teams is the reigning national champion. The other one looking for a new coach. Kind of crazy. But anyway, that's where we are right now. We'll get some spring football coming up, a conversation with both of those two gentlemen as they welcome them back to the show. Also, we'll talk a little Final Four as well. As you know, I spent, a number of years at CNN Sports, Turner Sports, did a dozen Final Fours. And so we'll have that conversation as well in terms of just kind of overall, like just what this time of year means and how really special it is compared to anything else on the sports calendar. It's just, it's really a special time. I'm excited that we're here, counting down to Indianapolis here this weekend. A couple of headlines for you before we get to Mike. Tiger Woods, the big news, he announcing that he's going to step away from golf and enter rehab. The 15-time major, of course, had that crash just 4 days ago down there in Jupiter, Florida. He pleaded not guilty on Tuesday to a DUI charge. By the way, his attorney, the same that one he had back in 2017 when he also had a DUI arrest, and back then ended up accepting some reduced charges then. Tiger, once again, hasn't played competitively on the PGA Tour since the British Open back in July of 2024. He did play in the TGL Finals, that that indoor golf league that he's created. That's really pretty interesting. That was amazingly just like 9 days ago. Had kind of flirted with maybe trying to get to the Masters next week. That's now not going to happen. So he's not going to try to add another green jacket. But again, Tiger trying to bounce back not only from recent Achilles and back surgeries, but now also, again, this setback personally as well. We wish him the very best as he focuses on his health. Tiger, of course, shares a birthday with LeBron James, who made history last night. Lakers beat Cleveland 127-113. For James, that was win number 1,229. That breaks Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's mark for the most total wins in NBA history. Now, Abdul-Jabbar still is number one in the regular season wins. LeBron could maybe top that next week, but again, or next year, I should say. But anyway, LeBron making history as, by the way, Luka in that game getting 42 to help the Lakers to that win. Rockets thumped the Knicks in Houston as well. Hornets beat the Nets to snap a two-game skid. Jacksonville Jaguars announcing they will play the 2027 home games in Orlando at Camping World Stadium. Of course, they're undergoing a massive $1.4 billion renovation of Everbank Stadium there in Jacksonville. The Jags needed 75% approval from the league owners to do this, and they got that. They considered also playing those home games in Gainesville at the University of Florida's Ben Hill Griffin, but instead they will go to Camping World Stadium in Orlando. This year they will play in Jacksonville, but reduced capacity, only about 43,500 is all they can fit as they again make this. They already renovated this stadium once before, about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I should say, before they hosted a Super Bowl, and now they're doing it yet again. USA losing 2-0 to Portugal in Atlanta in their last match before they set their roster for the World Cup. Up next for them, they will have a pre-World Cup friendly versus Senegal in Charlotte. That comes up here in late May. Italy missing out on the World Cup for the third straight time. They're the only past champion ever to miss 3 straight World Cups. Interesting there. Dodgers getting 6 shutout innings from Shohei Ohtani in his first start since Game 7 last October. Dodgers get the win in that one. Coming off the loss the night before, where Rory Sasaki came back strong. Just 1 run allowed in 4 innings, 4 strikeouts in his season debut. Had that terrible spring. ERA over 15. Half the batters he faced reached base in that one. And by the way, speaking of baseball, Major League Baseball Players Union says they have almost $450 million in their war chest in case of a lockout at season's end. If you like baseball, enjoy this season. It sounds like it is going to be a war in the offseason between the owners and the players trying to work out a new collective bargaining agreement. All right, producer Tony is with our first guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And of course, spring is spring football all around the country. Yeah, Final Four is taking center stage, but college football just keeps going. They've kind of taken on that NFL mentality. There's something happening all year round so that college football can stay in the news. And we're lucky enough to have our good friend Mike Gross from the Gross Rational Product join us on Substack. Mike, thanks so much for taking some time to be here with us.
Sure. I can't believe you guys are doing anything other than Ally and I all the time. Today of all days.
Yeah, working on into the Final Four, getting things ready to go there. It's always an exciting time, but we always have to take some time out to get back to college football and get back to those roots and things to get us going.
Yeah.
And you guys have a great story going on right now in Penn State because it's the dawn of a new era. Give us some background on the first few days of Matt Campbell actually getting to have his players on a football field and doing some drills.
Well, it really is an interesting situation because it's kind of like two programs are melding together. There's so many guys that came from Iowa State, and they also have some other key transfers from other places. And they started spring ball last week. Campbell held a press conference, and then on Thursday we got to watch their second practice, and we got to see the whole practice, which that's something new for us. He's got a much different style. They're really doing almost remedial, like drill only stuff right now. Not really a competitive situation. And I think it's just because they're getting used to each other and getting used to terminology. At one point, they were kind of dummying little offensive stuff. And those wristbands that the quarterbacks wear, those thick ones that they can flip open. The whole offense was wearing those at one point. so we're at the remedial stage. Another interesting thing is he's going to practice in the morning, in the spring and in the fall, and he talked a lot about that, about how he sort of arrived at that. He thinks that's an advantage. And I thought that was interesting and made some sense. I don't know how unusual that is. Nationally, my sense is it's pretty unusual, but that's something different. Lots of little things different. We're a long, long way from seeing a football team take shape, of course.
Yeah. Do you think they had one of those meetings, Mike, where everybody came in and, since they didn't know, did anybody have name tags? Do you think that first one, hi, I'm from so-and-so.
Yeah, there might have been some of that. We had Rocco Becht, who's going to be their quarterback, the Iowa State transfer. We got to talk to him a couple weeks ago, and he said, hey, when I got here, I was getting everybody's email and everybody's phone number. And I was actually going up to guys and saying, hi, I'm Rocco, just going out of his way. And I think there was a lot of that with the Iowa State guys. Let's really try to ingratiate ourselves and make it into a team,
Yeah, I think that's the key part is getting those guys together, getting them as to one focus, one mindset, one team, and you have to know somebody before you can play football with them, right? You can't just be all strangers and walk into
especially
a team
in
setting.
certain. Yeah, I think that's especially true in certain position groups. The offensive line would be the number one, and one thing I've got to say is, I always pay attention to that because I think of the offensive line as sort of the engine of the football team, and there's a lot of moving parts there and everything. They're in pretty good shape there. It looks to me like they are. I'm surprised. I thought that was going to be a big issue, and you can kind of see it taking shape already. They have some areas where it looks pretty good, and there's some areas where you just have no idea at this point.
I think one of the other position groups, we'll get back to Rocco in a minute, but the other position group that to me that's going to be interesting could be the running back room because Penn State lost a lot of production after last season because guys just ran out of eligibility finally.
Yeah. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen both probably going to get drafted and had really good college careers and really were foundational guys for a long time. They have a number of running backs, and some of them, they have a kid from Iowa, an Iowa State transfer who ran for 950 yards last year. He's in the picture. Penn State has a guy who Quentin Martin Jr., who had 100 plus yards. First time he carried the ball in college was in the Pinstripe Bowl because uh, Singleton and Allen opted out, and he had a 100-yard game. And then they have a transfer from Ohio State, a kid named James Peoples at running back, who looks like a pretty good player to me. So they have some running backs. I don't know if they have another Katron Allen or Singleton. Oh, I'm not hearing you.
There you go. Enough to get the things rolling. Yeah. Get things going and keep things moving and get things going. Because Rocco Beck, he is a very experienced quarterback, which makes one of the transitions leader. Plus, he's experienced in Campbell's system that he's going to bring, so he can really lead the other guys through what that system is all about.
And I think he's a pretty natural leader. He's not a big guy. We saw him running around on Thursday, and he's listed at 6'1". I'm not sure he's even that big, but he's. I think he is going to go into next season leading the country among returning quarterbacks in starts and wins. So that's a thing. That's a thing that supposedly the NFL thinks that's useful as a thing to look at. So I think he's a pretty good player, and I know that he is very conscientious about being a leader. So I guess that's kind of a load off of Matt Campbell's mind a little bit, that he didn't have to worry about that situation too much.
How is the feeling around the program? You've been there quite a while. You know Penn State inside and out. What's the feeling with the fresh air of Matt Campbell? Was there any leftover feeling from James Franklin leaving? Had it become an issue with how things were there, or is it just this was just a natural changeover? One guy wasn't getting the job done. We're moving on to somebody else.
I don't know. I don't know that it was natural, and I think it might have been a little more natural if Penn State had handled it a little better. If the Penn State administration and AD had handled it a little better, but they kind of landed on their feet and got one of the handful of guys that you would have said you would have wanted to get, right? I mean, I think Matt Campbell's a guy who turned down the Detroit Lions when they hired the other Campbell, which that worked out fine for the Lions, I think. But my point is that he is a very highly regarded guy, and this is his chance to try to do it with big resources and some money and some in the big leagues. Not that the Big 12 is the minor leagues, but you know what I'm saying. So it's going to be a lot different in style. I think Campbell's a much different personality than Franklin, and his staff is a much different group. They're kind of colorful. They're kind of a colorful group. This offensive line coach is a piece of work. Monster tattoos all over him, and he's out there. He has his own merchandise. He is a dude on the. He's a character, and he's a good talker too. So we hope that he's available for interviews as often as possible. It's going to be a change in personality, a change in feel, and I think Penn State fans will warm up to it as we get closer to actually playing football games.
Yeah, I've still got a few months left before we're actually going to, start putting game plans in and all that kind of stuff. As we said at the top, it's like college football is becoming like the NFL. It's a year-round deal at these points. You don't get any downtime. Does that hinder coaches? Does that take away from a coaching staff really to rejuvenate themselves? I know this is not something that'll happen to Penn State because Matt's coming over fresh from Iowa State and it's a whole new beginning. But in general, with college football, having to be let's say on year round, does that take some oomph out of some of these coaches?
It would take some oomph out of me. I mean, I think it is an extremely difficult job, and I know they're getting paid, and that's fine. I'm not saying woe is me about college football coaches, but it's extremely difficult. A head college football coach. Think about how many decisions he has to make every day, not just the tangible decisions about, are we going to do this at this time or this time, but decisions about what kind of message you want to send about your program, and the almost marketing aspect of it, the almost like being a public official aspect of it. Man, there's a lot there, and I'm sure it is exhausting. And I think they could they could tweak the recruiting calendar a little bit to make it less exhausting. I think that would be a thing.
Yeah, well, at least this year, one thing teams can hold spring break and hold spring ball and have a spring game without having to worry about, well, if I don't play this kid in the spring game, he might transfer out. The transfer portal not being available in the spring might make things a little bit easier for some of these teams.
That's a good point. I think that's a way in which they have already tweaked it a little bit, and we'll see if it has a positive impact. I kind of suspect it will, because you can imagine with the spring portal, some kid gets the lay of the land in spring practice, and hey, I'm out of here. And I mean, think about that from an academic standpoint. Come on, I mean,
right.
That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully we've gotten that part of it squared away. I still think that the fall portal needs to start at a different time because, again, we saw it this past year during the playoffs. You had a couple of teams lose a guy who was like, okay, well, that's great. We're going to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm out. I'm going to go play somewhere else. It's like, this doesn't happen in the NFL. You don't get to start free agency in the NFL. Has the playoffs started? Hey, they're not going to re-sign me, so I'm not going to finish out the year. I'm going. See, bye, have fun.
People say, well, college sports is getting more and more like the pros. Yeah, well, show me a pro league where every player is an unrestricted free agent 365 days a year. No, that's something that I think eventually is going to have to change because it's absurd,
Yeah, I think we're going to have to get it. Monday there was an article from Jeremiah Smith. Somebody had spent some time with him and talking about how at the end of last season, he got approached by a few programs. He wouldn't name the program. He said, you guys can all figure it out who it is about transferring from Ohio State. Now, here's a guy who's a two-time All-American, probably the best player on the Ohio State roster, in the running for the Heisman Trophy last year, and never made an announcement that he wanted to transfer, and yet all kinds of people were coming after him to transfer. Something in that has to change. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would. But again, everybody in the sport wants this guy. He's people think he's the next Jerry Rice, so everybody wants him. But it's again, everybody's an unrestricted free agent all the time, and that it's not just that's not just to the advantage of the kid. In some situations, it could drive a kid nuts a little bit to be dealing with that all the time.
Do you think going in now, this is going to be Matt's first year, and we've all seen this Cignetti effect around college football and college sports and overall, right? He comes in first year, suddenly they're in the playoff, they're winning 11 games. They've never done that before, reaching heights they never reached. Will Penn State, I don't want to say have the courage, but are they going to take it in a normal pattern where it's like, okay, look, you've got to come in and have a little bit of time to establish yourself, or it's going to be, look, we want to get back to the playoff clock's ticking. Let's go, buddy.
Well, there will be some of that because Cignetti just broke every mold that there is. I mean, that to me, that's the greatest. I can't think of a better coaching job in over a 2-year period ever in any sport than that guy has done. I thought he should have been Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year because it was so sort of emblematic of the time that we live in. I think that somebody could do it that quick and that, breaking all the apparent norms. We're certainly familiar with the breaking of norms, aren't we? But one thing about Penn State is the Big Ten was very kind to them in terms of the schedule. On paper, they do not play Indiana. They do not play Oregon. They do not play Ohio State. There's 4 or 5 teams in the Big Ten that play all 3 of them. Penn State has always played Ohio State since it's been in the Big Ten. They don't play them this year. So they've got a shot. They certainly have a shot to win 9 or 10 games, I would think, which in a sane world would be thought of as a great success in year one, given all things considered. But it ain't Cignetti.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to the fall. We'll obviously be talking to you more as we get closer to fall. But sure. Mike Gross, thanks for taking some time with us. Really appreciate it. Mike Gross, he is the author of The Gross Rational Product on Substack. Give it a subscribe. Check it out. If you're a Penn State fan, that's information you have to have for the season year round. Check him out. We appreciate it. Mike, appreciate your time, my friend.
Thanks. Good to talk to you, man.
We're going to take a quick time out, but we'll be right back on the Sports IQ.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Getting back now to the Final Four coming up here this weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Game 1, it's UConn versus Illinois. Game 2, it is Michigan against Arizona. The Big Ten trying to break through and win their first national title since 2000 when Michigan State did it. Tom Izzo, his first and only championship. The Big Ten, a quarter of a century since then, still looking for their first championship. And boy, I tell you, they look Big Ten looked really good this year. It should not be a surprise. You never know how things are going to play out. I mean, it's matchups and it's, the ball bounces a certain way, but Michigan, Illinois, along with Purdue, Nebraska, they were right there in the top 10, top 15 for most of the year. And so now the Big Ten does get two teams in, Michigan and Arizona. It's kind of funny. You look at Indianapolis, little Final Four trivia. The first Final Four that was held there was back in 1980. At the old Market Square Arena, which has been torn down since then. Louisville beating UCLA that year, Dr. Duncanstein. They came back in 1991. They had built the Hoosier Dome at that point. Duke and Mike Krzyzewski winning their first title in that epic game over Kansas on that Monday night. They come back later. Arizona wins it in 97 at that same place. We mentioned Izzo and Michigan State in 2000, 2006. They come back again. Florida gets the win over UCLA. Not a good venue for UCLA when you look back. Lucas Oil then comes into play, and they host this event for the first time since 2010. Now, the thing about Lucas Oil Stadium, it was the first stadium built with the idea that they're going to use the entire dome for basketball. Now, up until that time, outside of the Superdome in New Orleans, what would happen is that these, the configuration, the NCAA would just they would cut the dome in half and bring in some temporary seating to kind of make a smaller arena within the larger. Well, New Orleans never did that. And what they did when they were designing Lucas Oil was they said, we want to kind of go to where we're using the entire dome. They had begun doing that in 2009 in Detroit at Ford Field. The setup was not ideal. There just were some quirky sight lines. They brought in some temporary screens that weren't very good, kind of obfuscated views of the big screens from some spots. I remember I was in there. It just was awkward. But Lucas Oil is one where they've kind of built it to where they can extend very easily down and use the entire 70,000 for the dome. And so we will see that. We've seen that before there, and they'll have it again here this weekend. For Lucas Oil, it'll be the fourth time they have hosted as the NCAA. Basically, they have a deal to come in and stage the Final Four in Indy every 5 years. And so they did that in 2010, 2015. Of course, 2020, the tournament was not played due to the COVID pandemic. They come back in 2021 at that point. Interesting thing about this, that outside of Duke winning it in 2010 and 2015, every Final Four held in Indianapolis has featured a coach winning his first national title. Denny Crum in 1980, Mike Krzyzewski in 1991, Lute Olson in 1997, Tom Izzo in 2000, Billy Donovan in 2006, and then Scott Drew in 2021. So if you go along that, again, Krzyzewski comes back and wins two more there in Indy. That would bode well for three of the four teams, coaches that are in the Final Four. Tommy Lloyd of Arizona has not won one. Dusty May of Michigan, looking for his first. Brad Underwood of Illinois has not won one. So Dan Hurley, of course, the two titles in 2023, 2024. So it's an amazing scene. I've done 12 Final Fours myself, including the first one was there in 1997 when Arizona knocked off Kentucky in overtime. Kentucky fans still upset about that because of the free throw discrepancy. I think it was like 42-17. the team in the darker colors, Wildcats, as the 4 seed, getting that done. That's unusual. I will tell you that doesn't happen very often. So, but I'll also argue with Kentucky fans that in terms of the foul discrepancy, they were reciprocated back in 2014 when they, as the 8 seed, shot 24 free throws to UConn's 10. Little white jersey theory. They'll have that conversation as well. We've talked about that here in the past. So we'll see what happens here this weekend. Could it be, again, a first-time thing in terms of for Indy? But the scene is always amazing. And I think one of the coolest things for me is to go in on Friday and to see, again, where they have the entire dome open. It's free of charge, and anyone can come in and just watch. It's just, the guys they're just shooting around. It's nothing that's there's no special, obviously, strategy, that kind of thing. It's a pomp and circumstance. But again, as we said before, it's a way to kind of get a chance for the fans to see their teams. There's some concessions there or whatever. Obviously, a lot of merchandise sales. It's always big. But it's a spectacle unlike really anything else in terms of getting in and getting a chance to see their favorite teams. 2 games. So UConn, Illinois will play the first game, Michigan, Arizona, the second game. CBS and Turner Sports are going to love this because you've got 4 of the top 10 most popular teams in college basketball all at the same Final Four. And it says something for the sport as well that this is a quartet that does not include Duke or Kentucky or North Carolina or Kansas or UCLA. It's the new big dog on the porch in UConn and 3 other teams that have had just outstanding runs here this decade. And, of course, great histories, all of them going for the brass ring. So very exciting there. We can't wait to get, again, closer to tip-off here on Saturday. We'll have much more on the Final Four coming up. Up next, though, Coach Griff talking Indiana football. The champs, what are they doing right now? Producer Tony talks with him up next.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
First day of April, no fooling. No jokes here, just good conversation. Producer Tony's with our next guest.
Well, Larry, down here in the South where I live, it's said that there's 2 seasons. There's football season, and then there's spring football season. Now, other places around the country may have a differing opinion, but that's just the way they kind of handle things down south. And, today we're lucky to be joined by our old friend, our very good guest, Shannon Griffith from thehoosier.com. Shannon, Coach, how you doing? How's the spring been for you there in Indiana?
Well, we're starting to feel a little bit more warmth than we have been over the last few months, so that's a good thing. Indiana kicked off their spring last Thursday, a little later this year because of the good thing of Indiana playing in the national championship game on January the 19th. They pushed it back a little to get a little bit more recovery for their players and for acclimation of the new guys in the program. So they're actually entering week 2 as we speak. So when spring ball's around, it's pretty close to getting ready for the Indy 500 that comes up in May. So it's all right there.
It all just kind of flows one into another, right? From spring football down to Indy, and then pretty soon everybody will be back ready for fall camp and getting going. I read a couple things about how camp has started, and, Coach there had to kind of let some of the new guys know how things are run at Indiana. It's different than how things might be run other places. One of the newcomers, the wide receiver Marsh from Michigan State, got let know right away that this is all about team, not individual, right?
Yeah. And the thing with Sig is that he'll pick out a guy like Nick Marsh or these guys that are the quote unquote, the 5 stars of the program. And he'll jump on them a little bit to show that or make an example of. And he had a little bit of fun with that because I think after he said that, he came out in gold shoes, I didn't like that. And he found out what it's like to get his what ripped. It may not have happened to him at Michigan State, but this is a different program. But he also said at the end of that, he says he's a hard worker, and we're excited that he's going to, that he's here. So some of it is a little bit of his orchestration, in that regard. I always think like that situation there, I think there'd have been enough guys that would have told Nick Marsh it was not a good idea for you to go out in gold shoes. So I'm just wondering and speculating if Sig didn't have a little bit of a skit involved in that scenario, but we shall see. But Sig is he's got a standard that everybody's going to live to, and it doesn't matter whether you're the top guy or the 95th guy in the program. You're going to live to the standard that's been set, and anything short of that is not good enough. And that's what he's done since he's been here, about the standard and the blueprint, and can't argue with the results. So I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he seems to really be able to, some places you read about in the portal, they go out and get all these kids, they get this, they get this, they get this. And then the season, Florida State's a great example. They go out, get all these pieces, but then the sum doesn't equal the sum of the parts, right?
Right.
Things tank and fall off. Coach Cignetti has found a way. I don't know what the secret sauce is, but he's found a way to bring all these different personalities together and get them to buy into one goal, which in today's sporting world is so difficult.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Sig has stated with the portal and what he looks for is he looks for guys that have production. He's not looking for potential. He wants somebody to have a body of work to be evaluated. And he's a pretty good darn evaluator. It doesn't get caught up in too much of the outside noise about how many stars this kid is or was. He gets caught up in what did he do at that program. And that's what he formulates a lot of his stuff on. And it doesn't matter whether you're at a P4, a G5, or a 1AA for that matter. If he feels you can meet the demand at what position you're going to play, and you have shown the production at that position, then he's going to recruit you and bring you in.
And, one of the key positions, obviously, look, college football centers around the quarterback, just like the NFL these days.
Mm-hmm.
And Indiana's done a fabulous job the last 2 years of finding portal quarterbacks to come in and take over. Mendoza, being last year's quarterback, wins the Heisman. He's probably going to be the number one pick in a few weeks here down the road at the NFL draft. Now the kid Hoover comes in from TCU. Great production. Has some problem with turnovers, which I know will drive Coach Cignetti right up the roof real quick. How does he work with him to help eliminate those turnovers and get him to buy into, you have to take care of the football better?
Yeah. Well, again, going back to the production aspect of things, Sig is going to dissect what that quarterback is being asked to do in a system from A to Z, including protection. If you notice, a year ago, Mendoza had been sacked like 40 some odd times at Cal, and he had developed some bad habits due to that. And those are the things they worked on extensively in the spring and the summer. Sonny Dykes even kind of pointed out in a radio show about Josh Hoover that he is turnover prone in a way of kind of, taking a shot at the kid a little bit. But you got to look at why he was a turnover prone. Was it because their offense at TCU was about forcing the ball down the field? Yes. And when you force the ball down the field, you're going to get picked sometimes. And that's part of the game. And then if there's things that you can correct because he's making the incorrect read, those are things that you can control and evaluate and give him a better identity behind the center. One thing with Indiana and their quarterback position, they don't necessarily put them into positions where they're forcing the ball really down the field a whole lot. They believe that it comes to them at the right time, and that's where you've seen all these back shoulder throws and things of that magnitude, because they're about what is the defense giving us. And for the most part, Indiana has stayed out of the third and longs over the last 2 years. That puts the percentages in their favor on third down, and you've even seen them run the ball on third down and not have to throw it. So look, Josh Hoover's got all the potential in the world. Indiana, he was actually recruited by Tom Allen and had actually committed to Indiana coming out of his high school, but decommitted after the change was made. So I think the kid's got everything you need. I think he's got a great supporting cast, including that wide receiver room. And we're just going to have to wait and see if he can, outlive what bogged him down at TCU with the turnovers.
of the position rooms, for Indiana, transfers, look, nobody's done a better job in the portal the last 2 years than Curt Cignetti. What position group do you think they're going to be focused on the most outside of quarterback, obviously, to maximize the potential in that room to help this year's team?
You mean at any position or just at the quarterback position?
Yeah, at any position. Like what group is going to be the focus of this spring, do you think, for Indiana?
Well, I think you got to look at the running back room. You lost your two best leading rushers, and Black and Hemby. And so now Martin, who was a young pup that played some as a third teamer last year and actually performed well when he got in the opportunity, will have his chance to see if he can lay claim to that number one position. They got Turbo Richards out of Boston College. So looking at that room, you're going to look at a room that has got talent in, but we're going to see how that all falls into place, including in the wide receiver room. You've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. Well, you can't play them all. They are going to have to find an area where, they've evolved in a position, whether it's just the three receiver set or four receiver set. But again, that room's going to be really interesting to watch because the competition is so stiff at that room. And then if you look over at defense, the defensive line, they got 18 bodies in the defensive line. Now, that's a lot of D linemen, more so than most teams would actually carry. They're more like carrying about 15 or, in that 12 to 15 range. They got 18 of them. So it'll be interesting how that all shakes out as it pertains to the guys that are there. You got Landino and Tucker, the two mainstays that come back, but you lose some talent in Daly, Wyatt, Kamara. I mean, there's some talented guys. So that'll be an interesting room also to watch to see who rises to the top and remains their top four. Those are kind of the three spots that I would say that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Where they're thin at, Tony, is at tight end. Brock Schott, the kid from Miami that they got out of the portal. He's actually from Indiana, up in the area that I live. And he had off-season hip surgery. And he's not available. And he was probably their most experienced tight end coming into this year, playing very few games at Miami. So that's a room that's really thin. Now, they got a couple of young guys. Are they ready to play yet? We're going to find out awful soon, including Brock Schott, who will probably be the number one tight end when he comes back. But again, you're talking about a room that does not have the experience that they've been accustomed to having.
Yeah, and we've seen a number of programs, where spring, a lot of people have tried in the last few years because of the portal to be a little more cloak and dagger with the spring football and, maybe not giving some guys some work because you think they might leave or they might be thinking of leaving. How is it there at Indiana with Cignetti? How open is he with everybody about what's going on at spring practice?
Well, I think any coach is always going to be guarded in what they say outwardly to anyone. The one thing about this year that's different, you do not have the spring portal. And the idea that a kid can just unenroll at one institution to go enroll at another, that's kind of the loophole that they found to avoid some things. We'll find out whether they put a kibosh to that. But I think Sig's pretty honest with the guys in the room. I think he's very transparent what they're thinking and what a kid has to do to get himself in a position to be ready to play. Indiana now is an opportunity that you see like at Ohio State and Michigan, where they can keep guys in the program for 3 or 4 years, and they're willing to wait their turn because they know they're going to have a chance to compete for the Big Ten championship and potentially a national championship. That has not been the case in Indiana over the years, and that's why you may lose some guys because, look, I want to play, and he's only a sophomore, and he thinks he's going to go somewhere else and play, and the reality of it is it's very seldom that happens. So now you got guys that are willing to come in here, battle for their time, and he's going to tell you with everything up front what he's thinking. And I go back to the Alberto Mendoza, Fernando's brother, 2-year guy in the program. Sig decided that, again, at the quarterback spot, he wanted experience and production, something that Alberto showed very little of. Not that he wasn't good enough. He just didn't. They weren't ready to turn the keys over to the Cadillac. Well, he didn't like that. He didn't like the fact they brought Josh Hoover in, so he ended up transferring to Georgia Tech. And Sig's like, this is who I am and what I am. I'm going to tell everybody up front. I'm not trying to hide from anything. And there's a prime example of him being upfront about what they were planning on doing and why. And they move forward with or without somebody. And I think that will always be the case under Cignetti.
Yeah. And I think that, that kind of honesty, almost refreshing in college sports these days. You don't see that too often. And I think it also goes to a point that shows that for Curt Cignetti, he's going to do what he feels is best for the program and not try to play to certain stars' feelings or anything. It's all about team. This is a team game, a team sport. If you want to buy in, great. If you don't want to buy in, that's fine too. We'll be fine without you.
Yeah. And, that is one of the hardest things for anybody. What you just said there is thinking of the 95 guys in the room instead of one or two or three feelings and how they look at you. Do they like me? Do they not like me? He's not about that. And you said it perfectly there. He's about putting the best 11 on the field, offensively and defensively, that gives Indiana the best chance to win, right, wrong, or indifferent over whatever one's feelings are or are not. And that's what he's always going to be. And I think he's very transparent with the kids that he's recruiting, that he's bringing in, the guys that are still in his program. So they know exactly where they stand and what is going to occur between now and whatever. And I think that's like the best way to handle a group of men and egos and feelings that I'm better than A, B, and C, because he's willing to let a guy go somewhere else to see if the grass is greener on the other side. So that's part of his blueprint. That's part of his standard and all the things that he talks about. He's very on point with the way he does things as a coach.
Yeah, and you can't argue with the results. I mean, the results of the last 2 years have been absolutely fabulous. The absolute heights for Indiana football, right now in college football. Coach Shannon, thank you so much taking some time out, talking to us about spring ball. We'll get together again as we get closer to kickoff, which, for us football fans just can't get here soon enough. Basketball's been great, but the clock is ticking for football season to get here.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you having me on anytime.
Shannon Griffith, coach, appreciate it. TheHoosier.com. Check it out. Check out the podcast. You'll get some great information. Like, if you're a Hoosier fan, you got to find out and be in the know, all things Hoosier all the time. Thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the Sports IQ.
Producer Tony joining us now. By the way, Producer Tony enjoying some vacation, some good family time, and we hear the sounds of the waterfall back behind you there. But Tony, getting back to what we discussed earlier about the Final Four, and you and I have talked a lot about this over the years, that the cool thing is about this, and especially now that we've got so much parity and it's different teams every year, is that it's a reward for the fans. And we've heard some of the coaches already this week talk about that in terms of just the fan bases. And it's a way to say thank you to them. And so that's why I love on Friday, they have the big open. It's free. If you can't afford a ticket, whatever, you can still go be a part of the experience. Go in, see your team for 30 minutes, just kind of run through their paces. I think that's what makes this special that you just don't get in other sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's different than football. Look, in basketball, everybody ends basically on a down note. If you make the tournament and don't win it, your year ends on a down note. If you manage to win a bowl game or win a playoff game and you lose, you still feel pretty good about your year in football. Yeah. You don't, if you're a fan base, you just don't feel that way with basketball because, you made it, yeah, and you lost. I mean, for me, if you're a fan, and I've been a Syracuse fan and a Notre Dame fan since the early 70s. And if rooting for those two teams, you're hoping that somebody gets there, and more oftentimes than not, my teams haven't. So it's been, 40 something years of struggling. Like, I was so grateful when Syracuse made the Final Four, when they played Indiana in '87. I was rooting so hard for them to beat Indiana, and then they lost on that shot. And then when they won it with Carmelo, it was thrilling. It was so exciting. Like, I wasn't there. I was watching from home, but it was thrilling to see your team win a national championship. It's special.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that one of my good friends, former boss, went to Syracuse, and when Illinois got the win Saturday night, I had all these text messages, of course, from friends who know I'm an Illinois fan, and I've been honest about that. I mean, I don't hide that. And so right away he said, "You got to go." I mean, he said he said I didn't go in 03, I didn't go in 13, I didn't go in 16, and now it's probably never going to happen for me. The tide has turned where Syracuse is no longer in the foreseeable future one of those teams. Now things can change and fortunes can change, but his point is that I don't see this happening the next 10 years. And at this point, it may never happen for me. So you got to go. And that's the thing too, I think, is that it's that you got to go do this because you don't know if your team's going to get back. Look at Baylor 5 years ago. Baylor wins it all. Looks like, okay, they're going to be the next team coming out of COVID. They've been persona non grata ever since.
Yep.
You just don't know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, look, I've been a Notre Dame fan since the late 60s, and they had really good teams in the 70s, right? We ended UCLA's winning streak against Bill Walton in what classic basketball game. Made it to the tournament. Could never make the Final Four. Could never get there. They got there. Notre Dame's been there one time since I've been a fan, and it was thrilling to see them get there. They couldn't get over the hump and win it, but you rarely get to see them get there. And now they're stuck in a position where they may never get there. That people are leaving. There's kids that are getting ready to enter the portal now for Notre Dame. So this big class that they brought in is about to get decimated because they weren't very good this year. And that's the other thing, Larry, if you get someplace and you're not very good, kids are not sticking around for 3 or 4 years to see, okay, well, maybe they'll get better. It's like, oh, we suck. I'm out. I'm going somewhere else.
Exactly. And you have all those other conversations going on that should not be, but we know that it's real. They're going on talking with players during the season, whatever, deals being made behind the scenes with third parties. Those things also are weighing in. And so I really feel it's a reason why some of these coaches have gotten out, when you look at it prematurely, because they're like, listen, it's hard enough to try to get my guys on the same page and to get them to grow and peak in March. Now I've got all these other factors behind the scenes. I'm just not dealing with this. I'm not going to mess with this.
Right.
So,
how many
but back to
are out there that have already made deals? It doesn't technically open till Tuesday. I guarantee you there's at least 50 players that are going to sign with new schools on Tuesday. That didn't happen between the conclusion of that championship game Monday night at whatever it is, 11:30, and the next day at 10 a.m. It's already thought out. So you can't blame those coaches for wanting to get out.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the games we've talked about again, Michigan, Arizona, UConn, and Illinois. Great for the fan bases of Arizona and Illinois with some great history, by the way. We go back to the 2005, the last time that Illinois was in. They were the 1 seed playing up at the Rosemont Horizon. Of course, we still see images of the comedian Bill Murray, who's from Chicago. They're wearing his orange and blue. And that was a big Arizona 15-point lead in the late in the second half, and Illinois came back and won it in overtime and went on to the title game, losing to North Carolina. And there was the 2001 where it was the other way around. Illinois a 1 seed, Arizona the 2 seed, and Arizona knocks them off. That was the year that Bobby Olson passed away, and then Arizona goes on to lose to Duke in the final. So there's great history with these two programs, with other coaches, etc. But both now in the Final Four, and their fan base is getting a chance to experience this.
Yeah, I mean, and those fan bases have got to be thrilled to see them there. I mean, Arizona is going to play probably what could be one of the classic games of the tournament against Michigan. That should just be an absolute war. And for Illinois, if they can get to the title game, hey, anything's possible. They're a good team. They're deep. They shoot the three. They've played defense, especially in this tournament, probably better than any team in the tournament so far.
Yeah.
So if they could play defense the way they've been playing it for 2 more games, anything's possible.
Yeah. 60 points per game is all they're allowing here during this tournament in their 4 games. By the way, UConn, the magic of Dan Hurley, can he do it again? They have never lost a game, Sweet 16 on, under his watch. I think I saw like 18-0 in that time. So trying to get to trying to win a third title in 4 years. All right, more to talk about that coming up here later on this week. Up next is our Moment of Awe.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe, and we go back to on this day in 1985 and the incredible NCAA championship game between top-seeded Georgetown and the 8th-seeded Villanova Wildcats. The Big East put 3 teams in the Final Four that year, and of course, both teams meeting here. It was in Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky. The last, by the way, championship game ever played at a campus arena or a home arena for a college team, if you will. Villanova, of course, the underdog, with the Wildcats shooting a record 79% in the second half, including going 9 of 10 in that run as they beat defending champ Georgetown 66-64, what's considered the biggest upset in tournament history for Raleigh Massimino, Villanova head coach. It was his only NCAA title. On this day, Villanova shocking the world in our Moment of Awe. Thanks so much to our guest today, Mike Rowe, stopping by, Coach Shannon Griffith as well. Thanks to you. Let's make this a great day. Say hi to somebody, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.